New information coming out of Syria as to what led to the death of the world's most wanted terrorist and ISIS founder. U.S. Special Operations Forces surrounded Bakr al-Baghdadi right before he killed himself and 3 children. The Kurds are now saying that they helped provide intelligence on his location. Hillary Vaughn has the latest from the White House. Hillary.
Charles, Fox News is learning that the ISIS leader al-Baghdadi's body part remains were buried at sea. The mission completed over the weekend relied on intelligence from Syrian Democratic Forces on the ground, and now the U.S. military is repositioning troops to secure key oil fields that provide revenue to the SDF. The president earlier this morning celebrated the mission's success.
He was a sick and depraved man, and now he's dead. He's dead. He's dead as a doornail.
The covert operation started at 5 p.m. on Saturday night. 8 helicopters carried Special Forces troops, including Delta Force operators. The troops suffered gunfire during the 1-hour and 10-minute trip to the compound holding al-Baghdadi. The troops then breached a wall of the compound, cleared it out, killing a large number of ISIS fighters and 2 of Baghdadi's wives who were wearing suicide vests. Forces captured 2 ISIS fighters alive and took 11 children into custody. U.S. forces tracked Baghdadi into a dead-end tunnel where the terrorist dragged 3 children with him and ultimately detonated his own suicide vest, killing himself. Baghdadi's death leaves ISIS with no obvious successor or leader, which deals the terrorist organization not only a physical blow, but an ideological one as well. Charles?
Thank you very, very much. Now that the world's most wanted terrorist is dead, questions are swirling around what's next for ISIS, what's next for Syria. I want to bring in retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who was the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence under President George W. Bush. General, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Charles. It's good to be with you.
It's great having you. Let me just get your initial reaction when you heard the news.
Well, I was elated. I haven't been so proud of these guys since they pulled Saddam Hussein out of a hole in December of 2003. It was a great operation, executed perfectly. Let me make one comment, though. Your previous reporter talked about this being a covert operation. It is not a covert operation. It is a clandestine U.S. military operation. And the reason that I make that distinction is because anything that is covert is followed by a briefing of the Big 8 of Congress. There was no requirement for that in this particular operation because it was a clandestine operation.
That is a great distinction. Obviously, politics jumped in the middle of this almost out the gate, which was sort of disheartening, to be quite frank with you. I thought as a nation we should have been cheering the results, cheering the special forces and the skill set that it took to go in there. But instead, the focus by many was, why did Russia get a phone call? Why didn't Nancy Pelosi get a phone call? Walk us through the kind of preparations that you need for this and why it was so important that we were able to reach out to Syria and Russia and others.
Well, the hard part of this is the intel work that goes into it. And listen, I think we give great kudos to the intelligence community, particularly probably the CIA, who was working the human intelligence, which is the most difficult and frequently the most unreliable. You're talking about finding one individual at a specific time in a specific place. And that is a hard proposition. I know. I've chased people in that situation. So then you get that information to the operators as quickly as possible, and they start not only putting their plan together, but they start building facsimiles so they can rehearse their operation on facilities that very much represent what they're going to find on the ground there. And then finally, you get a last-minute intel, you say a prayer, and you launch that operation.
We've got less than a minute. You mentioned the CIA and human intel. A lot has been mentioned about the Kurds. Obviously, they've been in the news over here. In less than a minute, if you can, how does this change the situation vis-a-vis the Kurds and the relocation to a safe zone, and how important of an asset or a priority should they be for the administration?
Well, I think they're very important, and that's why I was disturbed by the fact that I felt that we were leaving them vulnerable. But I think that the relationship with the Kurds will continue, and I think that the fact that they've been given credit for being part of this is a very positive thing, and so I think we'll continue working with the Kurds in the future.
General, always a pleasure. We learn a lot every time, and we thank you for your service and thank you for being on the show
Thank
today.
you.
General Boykin.
Thank you, Charles.